I hear from our speaker, Donna Rendeiro, who has served as Executive Director of the New Jersey Office for Planning Advocacy since July 2019. Prior to that, she served as Chief of Administration for the New Jersey Housing and Mortgage Finance Agency, or HMFA, Director of Community Planning at the New Jersey Redevelopment Authority, Acting Executive Director of the Office of Smart Growth, and Brownfields Policy Director. She has also worked with the Governor's Office of Economic Growth on urban policy. Today, she's going to tell us about the New Jersey State Development and Redevelopment Plan update. Donna?
My name is Donna Rendeiro. Happy New Year, everybody. I'm the Executive Director of the State Planning Commission and the Office of Planning Advocacy. So we're about to embark on the update to the State Development and Redevelopment Plan. So for those of you that are not familiar with the plan, it is a function of the State Planning Act. The State Planning Act was issued in the early 1980s as sister legislation to the Mount Laurel legislation that basically provided the fact that you can't have good planning for affordable housing unless you comprehensively plan your entire community. But one of the requirements of the State Planning Act is to develop a state development and redevelopment plan. And it's designed to represent a balance of conservation and economic growth opportunities. And balance is the key word here, because rightfully so, EDA's responsibility is for economic growth. DEP's responsibility is for environmental protection. DOT's responsibility is for the well-run roads and keeping them in good repair. But our goal at the State Planning Commission is to balance all of those goals. And sometimes those goals can be competing. And how we balance those is by working with our state agency partners, doing comprehensive planning, and providing guidance to all levels of municipalities at all levels of government, municipalities, counties, state agencies, to come up with some comprehensive planning guidelines. The current state plan has 8 goals that reflect these balances. So they're things like providing conservation and open space and recreation. It's providing cleaning up of brownfields. It's providing economic growth opportunities. It's providing facilities and transportation networks in good working order at a reasonable cost. It promotes providing affordable housing at reasonable costs. So there are 8 current goals in the plan that really address these sometimes competing goals that the state, when you look as a whole of government, needs to be able to accomplish. With this update of the plan that we're doing today, or this year, we're going to be adding 2 more goals. One is on equity and one is on climate change. The current plan, which was done in 2001, which was like lifetimes ago, did address those 2 items, but didn't address it to the level that we need to address them today. So we are elevating those 2 items to 2 more goals, so we will have 10 goals in the new plan. But the state plan is not regulatory. We can't force anyone to comply with the state plan. We're not the MLUL. We're not legislative in nature, even though our authority comes from legislation. We can't force a municipality to comply with the goals of the state plan, nor can we force counties or our state agency partners. We try to collaborate as best as we can, providing guidance. I kind of look at municipalities in one of 3 categories. Either they do good land use planning for the sake of good land use planning, and they don't need us. Our guidelines are very similar to what they do. That's a handful of municipalities. There's another handful of municipalities that want to stay so far away from good land use planning, I don't want to waste my time with them. But the vast majority of municipalities want to do the right thing. They need guidance and they need help in doing so. And that's really what the state plan does. It provides that guidance. And working with our state agency partners that can help implement the plan, there could be benefits for those municipalities. The process to update the plan will end with 4 products. The first is a plan document, which will have the written documentation about what those goals mean, the goals, the strategies, and some priorities in how to get to those goals. we're required to do an infrastructure needs assessment, and we've engaged the services of Rutgers Blaustein Voorhees Transportation Center to do that infrastructure needs assessment. We are not going to reinvent the wheel here. We're going to be working with our state agency partners, looking at the analyses that have already been done, and we're developing the infrastructure needs assessment. The requirements that we need to do is not only our current needs assessment and the quantification of those needs, but also a prospective look. And infrastructure includes a lot of things. Obviously, it includes environment, includes transportation, it includes energy, but it also includes things like higher education, corrections, housing, public health, and a lot of things are included in infrastructure. So phase one is well underway now, where we're doing environment, energy, and transportation, and we've been working with our state agency partners on those items. We're reviewing those plans that they currently have, and we're developing that analysis. The interesting and the tricky part on the infrastructure needs assessment is the prospective needs. There is not enough money on the planet to cover all of our infrastructure needs. We know that. So how do we prioritize? Maybe it's a discussion of prioritization, and we're working on those items now. Phase two is going to be starting shortly. Then we have to do an impact assessment. That impact assessment will say, well, what happens if the plan doesn't happen? Are we going to put growth in preserved farmland? Are we going to ignore the environmental justice issues? What are the actions that the state plan can benefit, that utilizing the state plan can benefit from? And we haven't started that. We're probably not going to start that till mid-year this year. But our initial indication shows that most of the building permits have been issued in areas where the state plan encourages growth, and most conservation has been happening where the state plan envisions conservation. So it's not perfect. It's not 100%. But we do think that the plan is making a difference. Then we have a state plan policy map, which frankly is the most controversial of all, and I'll show you a picture of that in a minute. But what's critical in this process is stakeholder engagement. What the rules require are 27 public hearings. And I'll talk about the timeline in a minute, but once we issue the preliminary plan, we have to do 21 public hearings in each county in 45 days. Then we take that, we go through a process called cross-acceptance, and we negotiate. And then we develop, as a result of that cross-acceptance process, a final draft plan, and we have to have 6 more public hearings as a result of it. But we don't think that's enough, and we think that's too late. So we've spent a lot of time over the last 6 months getting some early stakeholder engagement and some outreach programs. So what we did through the end of last year, we held 8 stakeholder sessions, and that began with a community, a session at the New Jersey APA conference in June. We have engaged the services of New Jersey chapter of the American Planning Association, and they are assisting us in the community outreach. Those 8 stakeholder sessions that we had are recorded. We've developed and we are utilizing a website called publicinput.com. And if you want, you can go to publicinput.com/NJ State Plan, and the recordings of those 8 sessions are there. They're very topical. They were divided by either affordable housing, transportation, and the like. So those recordings are on that Public Input website. We also are engaging with our interagency stakeholders, county planners, and we've developed a subcommittee of the State Planning Commission. We meet with them monthly because in order for these groups to support the plan, we wanted to engage in that with them early on. My understanding is when we did it in 2001, we kind of just dumped the plan on everybody and said, here, adopt it. Obviously, that's not the way to go. So we've been talking to our interagency partners, many of our state agencies that are on the State Planning Commission, as well as a number of other state agencies that don't have a seat on the commission. We've been working with the County Planners Association, And we've been working with the subcommittee of the State Planning Commission to kind of coalesce and get some ideas around the table. We've offered to each of the counties, because the counties play a very, very integral role. The State Planning Act anticipates that the counties be the negotiating entities for their municipalities. So they are key to talking to the municipalities. And so we want to work very, very closely with our county partners and our regional partners. So we've asked every one of the counties if they wanted an individual meeting. We've met with 18 individual counties in various different formats. Some were more formal like this, some were informal around the table with department heads. Whatever worked for the county is what we would accommodate. We are also required to do population trend analysis and population projections. Again, what we don't want to do is reinvent the wheel. We want to be able to utilize what we're thinking of doing is utilizing the MPO projections. They're on the same timeline. We're looking at 2050. All of the MPOs are looking at around 2050 as well. So we've engaged New Jersey Future to analyze the MPO population projections. Again, why reinvent the wheel? Why have two separate sets of projections? It makes way more sense to have one kind of roadmap. They are looking at those pieces now, and they're almost done with that analysis. We have developed an interactive mapping tool, and the county training is underway. We've engaged Rowan University with that. The interactive mapping tool is also on that public input website. We had 2 training sessions for the counties. 20 of the 21 counties participated in that, and those training sessions are there. And it allows a user to look at the site and add different layers of interest so that when we start talking about the mapping discussions, they're going to know what layers are involved and what environmental issues there may be, for example. So right now what's on there is just the existing conditions. We're currently working on mapping protocols on what we want to put in for the future. But right now it's just the existing mapping tool. Mentioned the infrastructure needs assessment. That's underway with Rutgers and Voorhees. We procured this public comment software. This public software is great because not only does it allow us to do surveys, which we have on the website, we also have a place for public comment. It allows people that are not comfortable using the internet, they can call an 800 number and leave a voicemail. And it not only consolidates all of those comments, it also geocodes them. So we know what area of the state they come from. This has been a great tool, and the more we work with it, the more we find it's great. And we started to work on the plan. We have internally the goals and the strategies are kind of going around our internal stakeholder group. And while also APA is doing that writing, they're already starting to write the priorities. And we've spoken to anybody who will listen. We've had sessions at the League of Municipalities. We've done webinars with the League of Municipalities. Many regional groups we've met with. I believe at the last count, it was a little over 1,100 people we reached. But we did not get to many of the underserved and underrepresented communities. And we're making a special effort now to develop a program where we will reach out to many underrepresented communities throughout the state. I like the idea. We want to get the youth involved, so I'm offering it to you. If you want me to get your youth advisory committee together, I will absolutely, because I'm not going to be here in 2050. They're going to be. I think somebody said that. It's their role. Also, one of the sub-objectives I have to reaching the youth is most youth don't understand that there is a planning career path that they could take. And if they really, truly want to impact their day-to-day quality of life, everything's got a land use implication. So kind of a sub-goal of my own is having the youth understand that the real way of impacting your community is getting involved in land use. That's just a little commercial. So in the first half of this year, now this is a very aggressive timeline. I would be really happy if I can make it, but understand that I'm not going to risk a good product for this timeline. I'm hoping to get this plan adopted by the end of this year. So in the first half, we're going to publish the preliminary plan and preliminary mapping. We're going to go through the cross-acceptance process. We're going to complete the INA phase 1 and begin phase 2 and begin the impact assessment. The first step that we have to do is on Friday, we are sending out 3,500 notices to county government, county planning board, county clerks, municipal government, municipal clerks, and municipal planning boards, interested parties or state agency partners and appropriate federal agencies. And we have to give them a 60-day notice that we're starting this process. That's going out hopefully this Friday. We anticipate the preliminary plan with all the planets aligning and everything working to have the commission approve the preliminary plan at their April, I believe it's the third meeting, it's the first Wednesday, and we are looking to publish the preliminary plan on April 8th. Then we wait for 45 days. Counties have some work to do in those 45 days, but we don't. But then we have to do those 21 public hearings in 45 days. The canvas state, I'm going to go pack a bag, work north to south or south to north, and just get to every community that we can get to. Cross-acceptance is where the counties become very intricately involved, and they tell us, and they represent their municipalities and tell us what they agree with and what they disagree with. Obviously, we don't need to talk about the agreements. Where they disagree, we negotiate. And again, nobody on this planet is going to assume that we are going to 100% agreement with 563 municipalities, 21 counties, 17 state agencies. That we know is not going to happen. But the State Planning Act envisions, and the language is the highest level of consistency we can get. When we get that, we will incorporate that into a final draft plan. We will have 6 more public hearings, and that at that point, the commission can then consider adopting the plan. Implementation, the reason we really are shooting for the end of this year is we have a lot of support from this administration to update the plan. But as you all know, a plan is only as good as its implementation. And we're hoping that 2025 will be the year of implementing the plan. There's a lot of education around what we have to do to implement the plan at the local level. Here, I'm not going to go through each one of these, but there are some statistics here that show that the world is very different. And these are mostly on housing, but the world is very different than it was in 2001. Household size is smaller. The impact of schools is different. So what we're hoping for is that we can educate local planning boards and zoning boards that things are very different. New Jersey is ranked #1 in the country in terms of people aged 18 to 34 still living with their parents, 45%. That's huge. That's why the housing numbers, the average household size hasn't gone down more than these numbers are showing. But what we also want to do is get the message across that why are we afraid of children? We should not be afraid of children. Children are our lifeblood. They are our diversity. They are our future. So let's keep the kids in the communities. Let's provide for them. And hopefully that would create a more diverse and vibrant set of communities. So that's all I have, although I think I missed one quick, my map was not in there.
You promised us a map, a controversial map.
Yeah, it's a controversial map, and I thought I had that slide in here. Anyway, the map is basically a pictorial version of where the state encourages growth and conservation. And if you're familiar with the state plan map, there are different planning areas within the state. Planning areas 1 and 2 are where we encourage growth. Planning areas 4 and 5 are where we discourage growth. But on the map, I'm sorry, I don't know what happened to it, but you see, I call it the state plan sash that goes from the Newark area down southwest into the Camden area. And you can see that that is where the urbanized areas are. And the funny part of it is we have maps that go back to 1935, 100 years ago, and they look almost the same. The green space, the pinelands, the highlands it all looks very similar. So it kind of is our legacy, but it's also what we want to make sure either we maintain, we want to encourage redevelopment, we want to encourage public transportation, we want to encourage the vibrancy, the walkability that a lot of our younger kids now are looking to do. We also want to encourage that and make a statement that says that good land use is a path toward prosperity for a municipality so that you can link that economic growth. But the challenge is going to be, how do you do it both? We have obviously climate change issues that, if you think of the Barrier Islands, also is a large portion of a $40 billion tourism industry. So how do you make sure that you are maintaining that tourism, that New Jersey's identity is, and yet protect the residents and the businesses that live where they're going to be very vulnerable? So that's the challenge we have. I look forward to working with everybody here. And I guess, I don't know if you want to take questions or.
All right. Thank you very much, Donna. Yeah, well, we missed the controversial map, but that was.
I know. I wonder if it was like, I don't know, maybe it was Freudian.
It's probably
Maybe I didn't
just
want
as well.
Too controversial.
It is, by the way, on our website. It's also, I believe, on the public input website.
But this is great, and it's right up the alley of the kind of public outreach and public input work that we're trying to do more of here as an MPO. We're definitely going to get you connected with our youth, our Up Next youth group. And I know that all of us, whatever kind of county or municipality we come from, that notion that you touched on at the very beginning of balance is a constant challenge for all of us. I know that in Passaic County, I'm often hearing from my constituents up county in the Highlands area that the balance is off between conservation and business development. That's going to be an important part, like a lot of things, of what you're doing. So do any members of the board have any questions for our presenter?
And if there's any municipality or county wants me to come out and do either this as a formal presentation or just sit around the table and chat, the offer's out there.
What I would suggest, anybody who wants to connect with Donna and doesn't get a chance to here, reach her through central staff, and we'll definitely try and get you out and speaking to anybody who wants to hear from you. So thank you very much. That was great.